Hi everybody, this is Dino Chris from Prehistoric Facts. This is the first special episode for this week, and so let's actually get right to it. In this episode, we're actually talking about Torvosaurus. Now, I didn't say Torosaurus, I said Torvosaurus. And Torvosaurus in Greek or Latin means savage, reptile, or lizard. Fossils have been found in Portugal and Spain, and even in Colorado and Utah, and even some parts of Wyoming. Lived in the Jurassic period of around 154 to 145 million years ago. Would have been between 35 to 40 feet in length. Probably would have weighed pretty close to 3 tons, and it was a carnivore. Now, many of you know that Torvosaurus was actually one of the largest theropods that ever lived in the Jurassic period. And then this would actually be in the same time as Allosaurus and Ceratosaurus. Now, in America, it would actually be the second largest at that time, because Saurophaganax would actually be the largest in that type of, in those kinds of theropods. Now, Torvosaurus would actually belong to a group of theropods called megalosaurids, and so he would actually be in that type of family. And so, in Dinosaur Evolution, or otherwise in Dinotasia, is where you actually see Torvosaurus the most, and kind of playing kind of like the villainous type of role in that, where he takes over an Allosaurus' territory and actually kind of actually becomes more like the snobby type of theropod that actually just kind of comes around and say, I rule the roost and I'm bigger than you. You don't belong in this territory anymore. And so that kind of thing. But even though that was, I would say that's not quite an accurate depiction of Torvosaurus, but even though it could have happened, but even though it's kind of a rare occurrence to actually see that. Now, Torvosaurus would actually have very large teeth for a carnivorous dinosaur at that time, and so it would not be as big as, like, say, the largest Ceratosaurus, and compared to body size, but it would actually be very close, because if you actually see the competition that it's actually going up against, Allosaurus and Saurophaganax, Allosaurus is a lot more common, and Torvosaurus is really rare. Even Saurophaganax was really rare. And the reason why is because their population was actually very small, whereas Allosaurus was actually very common. It's because they probably did hunt in packs, and they probably did actually were actually more widespread than Torvosaurus and Saurophaganax. Torvosaurus would have actually hunted a little bit more towards sauropods and even Stegosaurus. Allosaurus would have done the same thing, but Allosaurus would not have gone after, like, Brachiosaurus in any way, because Brachiosaurus was too large for Allosaurus to go after, even though it could actually attack the juveniles. Allosaurus was probably more designed to have actually taking on Camarasaurus, Stegosaurus, Camptosaurus, Diplodocus, and Apatosaurus, those types of dinosaurs. Torvosaurus would have actually done the same thing. It's just that Torvosaurus would have actually had the guts necessarily to actually go after a Brachiosaurus that was nearly fully grown, and so that would actually be the case for Torvosaurus possibly being a little bit more of a savvy predator. And of course is the fact that Torvosaurus probably didn't live in packs very much. It probably was a little bit more of a solitary predator most of the time, but even though it could actually have cooperated in pairs. I would actually say Torvosaurus would have actually lived in pairs more likely, and probably did raise their young, but probably once the young got to a certain size, they actually had to kick them out in order for those younglings to actually survive on their own, and that sort of thing. So Megalosaurus would actually be considered a little bit more towards a primitive design of theropods, considering that their teeth are very thin and not going to be as strong as, like, say, as Allosaurus, or otherwise Tyrannosaurus Rex, because Tyrannosaurus Rex would actually have the strongest teeth of any theropod dinosaur, and so on and so forth. But Torvosaurus could actually do some damage with actually just taking quick bites and actually having the prey die of blood loss, and so on and so forth. And of course, the extinction of Torvosaurus would actually be, of course, is that it probably couldn't adapt to the new changes in the environment, and probably it's because the sea levels were starting to rise a little bit, and also it was starting to cool off a little bit in the Cretaceous, even though it was still hot in the Cretaceous, but even though it was cooling down a little bit, and so it was not really that great of a time to actually get really big. So you actually had to get smaller in order to actually adapt to that cooling that was going to be happening in the Cretaceous. And so the Jurassic was a little bit hotter than the Cretaceous, but it was actually a very great time for dinosaurs, especially when they actually had to get really large. And it was in the late Jurassic was pretty much the golden age of like getting really big for dinosaurs, and so that would actually be the case of that. Torvosaurus just couldn't adapt to those kinds of changes in the environment. That would have actually pretty much just couldn't adapt, and it probably didn't have the same brain capacity to like what Allosaurus probably did, and so that would actually be the case of that. Allosaurus probably lived a little bit longer into the Cretaceous, but even though they started to die out by the time the Cretaceous actually started to begin, and so that kind of came about there. Alright, that's it for now. Now this Friday I will actually have another new episode, another special episode. So it'll be on Chianzosaurus, this long-nosed tyrannosaur, and so that would actually be a pretty cool dinosaur to actually talk about. So just so you know, that special episode will be coming up. But then letting you know that is that I will be doing multiple special episodes each week now, going towards 100. And so next week I'll probably be doing 3 special episodes in 1 week. So that would actually be a lot to do for me, and so I'll probably do them every other day next week. So that way it would actually come to a good way to actually get closer to 100. And so just, and also keep on reminding you, you can still send me questions about dinosaurs or any other prehistoric life by emailing me at dinochrist71@gmail.com, or just go on my Facebook page, Prehistoric Facts of Dino Chris. Like the page and actually post your questions in the comments section or even on the wall. You can also follow me on Twitter at CSGRALL. That's my Twitter page. I post pretty cool stuff on there. Also, take care of people around you. Notice if you're good people out there, make sure to listen to your parents, your teachers, and your guardians. It's the best motivator you could have for good education. It's very important to have good education. So with good education, you do a good job in the future. Alright, that's it for now, and I'll see you guys this Friday.